Hello, good people. I am Odunola Sandra Ogmoladaini. I shall be your facilitator on this program, Matrimonial Courses in the Heights of the Law. In layman's language, this program is brought to you that you may be aware of your steps, the steps to take before getting married, and you may be aware of what the law says about what you do in relation to the issues of marriage, which you or someone close to you may be going through. In this program, we shall be discussing in today's episode, which is the maiden episode. We've begun this series in Yoruba language for this time, but in today's episode, which is the first of its kind in English that we'll be handling, we shall be talking about the definition of marriage by our laws, validity of marriage, and if there are other things, I'll let you know. First and foremost, it is pertinent to state that under our laws, the two laws that govern marriage under our laws are the Matrimonial Causes Act and the Marriage Act. The Marriage Act, as it is, deals with validity of marriage, things to ensure before marriage is contracted, and the essence of a valid marriage. That's what the Marriage Act deals with. Why the Matrimonial Causes Act deals with issues that arise in marriage, issues arising in marriage. So the Matrimonial Causes Act, when you talk of divorce, when you talk of separation, legal separation, call it judicial separation, divorce, judicial separation, jactitation of marriage, and other things. I will be explaining when we get to that stage. All right, now I'm just saying this for the purpose of letting you know what it entails. Those are the issues of Matrimonial Causes Act, the issues that Matrimonial Causes Act oversees. And more than that, there are more than that in the Matrimonial Causes Act. But then I must express here that Matrimonial Causes Act was not enacted that marriages should break. It is enacted to strengthen marriages. And that is why when you check the Matrimonial Causes Act, you find out that there are grounds upon which you may bring an application to court to dissolve your marriage. If you do not meet up with those grounds, your application for dissolution of marriage will be rejected, or your application for whatsoever you are seeking under it, if there are no grounds upon which such application is made, shall not be granted. That is by the way. So to begin with, let's define marriage in the context of our laws. In some jurisdictions, when they talk of marriage, you can say marriage is the union between two persons, whether male to male or female to female, or male to female. But here in Nigeria, under our own laws, marriage is only capable of one definition: the union, contract of marriage, the union between a man and a woman. A man and a woman comes together under our laws to get married. Our laws knows nothing of bisexualism or homosexualism. We do not have such under our law. In fact, they are criminalized here. So let's begin. So the marriage is a union of two people, a man and a woman, who come together for the purpose of being husband and wife. Okay. Now under our laws here, what are the things that can vitiate marriage? What are the things that can happen? We say, oh, this marriage is valid, this marriage is not valid. We are discussing validity of marriage now. So technically now, under this topic that I'm discussing, we have three types of marriages: void marriage, voidable marriage, valid marriage. What is a valid marriage? A valid marriage is that one that conditions precedent and perhaps conditions subsequent are met. Everything are met. Everything are okay. For instance, if by the law of, if this is Nigeria as it is, by the law of this land, the conditions precedent is that we must perform certain acts before we get married. And once we perform those acts and proceed to get married, the law will see that marriage as valid. The law will see that marriage as valid. In some jurisdictions, for instance, in Nigeria here, for a man and a woman to contract a valid marriage, the man must have been in Nigeria, if not a Nigerian, must have been in Nigeria for at least 15 days. If not a Nigerian, for a non-Nigerian to come and say, I want to marry a Nigerian, you must, and in Nigeria, for a non-Nigerian to come into Nigeria and say, I want to marry a Nigerian, or I want to marry anybody in Nigeria, such a person must have lived in Nigeria for at least 15 days. If you have not done that, perhaps you have stayed 14 days. You now approach the registry. You approach the registry for marriage. The marriage registry would refuse. In fact, they are duty bound to refuse to join you with the woman or the man you seek to marry. That is by the way. Now, we are talking about void marriage, voidable marriage, and valid marriage. I just discussed valid marriage. So for a marriage to be valid in Nigeria, you must have lived in Nigeria for 15. That's valid marriage. So let's talk about void marriage. Void marriage. We are still coming back to valid marriage because I've not discussed everything that makes marriage to be valid in Nigeria. Now, let's say void marriage. What makes a void marriage void? A void marriage is one that is void ab initio. That is to say, there is nothing to say about this marriage other than the fact that it is based on a wrong premise, on a wrong footing, and it is void. On what basis? For instance, we just said marriage is a contract. Marriage is a contract. If marriage is a contract, there are things to meet before you can contract a valid marriage, a valid contract. What are those things? Number one, capacity. A person who is getting married must possess the capacity to get married. What is the capacity to get married? One, age. Just like every other contract. An infant cannot validly enter into a contract. It's same thing with marriage. Under our laws, in fact, the matrimonial the marriage act says 21 years, but that has been corrected. That has been changed to 18 years because 18 years is the new age of majority in Nigeria. In some jurisdictions, some countries, they may have it as 16 years, as low as 60. But here in Nigeria, we have 18. So for you to contract a valid marriage in Nigeria, age as a capacity is number one factor. Number two, you must be of a sound mind. Sound mind. Okay, let's leave that one apart. That is general to contracts. It is general to contracts. Okay. There's something in the laws. There's something called prohibited degrees of consanguinity and affinity. What is consanguinity? What is prohibition? We all know what prohibition is. When we say doing this is highly prohibited, yes, it is prohibition. Then, what is consanguinity? Consanguinity is being related to somebody by blood. For instance, it is prohibited to marry my mother, my father, for me to say, I found my mother or my father. For instance, if I'm a man, or in case of a man, mother, in case of a woman, father. Okay, I find my father attractive to the extent that I want to get married to. No matter how attractive your relative is, you cannot marry your relative. Okay, so prohibited degrees of consanguinity involves a person's father or mother, siblings, that is your brother, sister, or home. Then more than that, your sister's son, your brother's son, your sister's daughter, your brother's daughter. I just mentioned nephew, nieces, then your cousins, your uncle, your aunts, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents. You cannot marry them. No matter how attractive they are to you, no matter whatever thing you are under, no matter whatever religion or whatever rights you bind yourself to, you simply cannot go and marry those ones according to our laws. It's wrong. So any marriage contracted on that basis is void. Then more than that, I just mentioned capacity. So age, I mentioned age. if you marry an underage, in fact, in certain laws, if you marry an underage, it is criminal. It is criminal. So if you marry an underage, you have set yourself up in a crime. So that marriage is void ab initio. As a matter of fact, if the parties to that marriage does not want to continue with that marriage, once it is contracted, you can just simply walk away without a recourse to the courts. But most of the time, we tell them to go to court, because it is in court that those facts that I mentioned can be brought forward, and the judge will look at it and pronounce it void. So you have a certificate that that marriage was void ab initio, and you have done the appropriate regarding that marriage. That is, by the way. So let's talk about voidable. A voidable marriage is valid, very valid, but has to be it has to take the decision of one party to the marriage to render it void, the aggrieved party to render it void. For instance, if marriage is based on certain deceits, what are the deceits? You lied to me regarding your age. You are not yet 18, you are 16, 17. You lied to me that you are 18 already, and I married you. And after marrying you, I found out you are not of age. And I know it can vitiate the marriage in the future. That will cost me so much. I can be tagged a pedophile in the future. Then I will go to court, ask the court to vitiate the marriage, to render it void, to pronounce it void. It is void already. It's not as if the court is rendering it void now. It's void already. But because it is based on deceit, I will now make it voidable. My Lord will make it void. The court will pronounce it void. That is, by the way. Then another thing, if you marry under a pseudonym, you lie to your spouse about your name. You lie about your name, you call yourself another name. Definitely, that marriage is based on the wrong premise, and the marriage can be rendered void by the courts. So that is a voidable marriage. I'm discussing voidable marriage. Don't forget that voidable marriage is a marriage that I can continue. I can say, oh, even when this man lied to me about his age, I can continue. Oh, okay, you can continue. But of a truth, there will be definitely, you get to a point where the law cannot protect you anymore in that marriage. So it's voidable at your option. It's better you make it voidable now. You make it void now if it is voidable, before you now start requesting the protection that the law cannot give. Now, if you marry anybody who has a venereal disease but has refused to disclose, at your option, at your insistence, you can apply to the court to make it a voidable marriage. You can apply to court to void that marriage, and once the marriage is voided, that settles it. So for any marriage to be made, for any marriage to be voidable, it has to be a marriage that has been conducted validly, but that cannot continue to be held as valid, because a party is aggrieved inside it as to the conditions precedent before marriage. Okay, let's talk about consummation of marriage. Somebody who knows that he cannot consummate. What do I mean by consummation? Somebody who's not capable of sexual relations. For instance, a man whose manhood cannot erect, cannot penetrate into a woman's vagina. If you get married to a man, whether or not he knows, it might be that he never knew. He might not have experienced sexual intercourse before getting married. So after marriage, if you find out as a spouse that your spouse cannot consummate marriage, yes, you can choose to stay with him. After all, there's nothing God cannot do. That's okay. The law has no business in that marriage. But if you know that you cannot, it is better to come out and void the marriage now. Oh, my Lord. He has refused to consummate marriage. When I asked him, he said he cannot penetrate, and I can find out that he cannot penetrate. It's okay. So that is a good ground of making the marriage void. He might not know. The other party might not. He might even be innocent. as in the party who is guilty now. It might be an innocent misrepresentation, but then it has happened. It has happened. So the law will void that marriage. That is by the way. So, and what is a valid marriage in all this? A valid marriage in all this is the marriage that is not, that is not guilty of any conditions subsequent precedents or conditions subsequent. For instance, for you to contract a valid marriage, you must have lived in this country for 15 days. Now, if you are an outsider coming to get married to a person in Nigeria and you have not satisfied that, you cannot contract a valid marriage. You'll be refused because the marriage is going to be invalid. Now, a Nigerian who goes to Dubai to get married who goes anywhere to any other country to get married, I must say this: if you're a Nigerian who goes to any other country to get married, you must first satisfy the curiosity of the laws of that place. You must satisfy the laws, the requisites. You must satisfy it before you can validly achieve marriage. For instance, if in Dubai, you must live in Dubai for 20 days before you can marry in Dubai. And you now live for 15 days, you deceive them, you marry under 15 days. And you now come back to Nigeria. You think the law of Nigeria will protect you when the law of Nigeria checks the conditions precedent to contract a valid marriage in Dubai. Nigerian law now finds out that you have deceived them over there, that you have not done the appropriate. That marriage will be rendered null and void. That is the void ab initio. That means when it is void ab initio, it means you have not contracted any marriage. That marriage never took place. That marriage was wrong on every premise, was wrong, and there is nothing you can do about it. It's okay. So let's stop it here for today. We have just discussed void and voidable marriages under our laws. So if there are other things I remember on this, I will bring it to you. Yes, this program was meant to be held on YouTube. Unfortunately, we can't